Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of GeekVerse podcast. I am one of your hosts, the center of the earth, Taylor Field, and I'm joined by.
None of our caster, Ilmas.
Yes, we are here to talk about the latest Godzilla King Kong addition to the Monster Cinematic Universe. It's going to be a good time. But before we get into our non-spoilers and spoilers thoughts, a couple of plugs. You can find us with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook. You can also find us on Patreon. And if you do so, you can get ad-free, exclusive early episodes. It's a wonderful place. Lots of juicy content just unfolding over there. Now, the special folks over here, the Patreon producers, Aaron Braden, April Darkness, Jack Grant, Muds, Sam, T-fucking-Money, you guys are amazing. We thank you so very much from the bottom of our hearts. You folks are just truly wonderful. What else do we got? Do you have anything going on in your realm?
My realm, side quest. Had a fun episode with Kirkland this week, talking about Princess Peach Showtime. Next week, me, you, and maybe Kirkland might join us as well. Talk about Marvel Rivals, the latest Marvel game, and some other stuff as well. So side quest is always good, and it's the season of X, baby. So we're reviewing X-Men, which has been a lot of fun. And I don't know, we're always doing news. What else is happening? That's about it, right?
Oh yeah,
I feel like with a review like this, it's a good time to plug Cryptid Clues. I think it's kind of related content.
I knew that was gonna come up. Yeah, yeah. There's a little something in this movie that if you like this kind of stuff, like cryptids things and whatnot, yeah, check out Cryptid Clues. There's always something dropping on Cryptid Clues every week, every Monday. We got a new episode popping off, and next week actually. We had a submission come in, and Ruben did a whole analysis of these audio clips that were sent in, and so Ruben breaks it down in an episode that'll drop next week. So it's
cool.
It's a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, this movie has definitely got that whole cryptid energy to it, and they really They've really. Am I getting into my thoughts now? Should I get into my thoughts now?
Well, I think maybe before that, can you just set up for me and for the listeners too, just what movies are part of this fucking universe and this continued story?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we have Godzilla that came out 2014 with Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and then we have after that it would have been Kong Skull Island. That's a prequel film. Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston. And then we have Godzilla King of the Monsters that came out, I think, 2019, I want to say.
Something like that.
And then we had, after that, Godzilla versus Kong. And then after that, we had Monarch, the Apple series.
Right. I couldn't remember if Monarch was canon to this universe, but it is. Okay.
It is, yeah. And then after that, yeah, now we have Godzilla X Kong. So I guess, yeah, how immersed are you in this? Because I don't even remember who's been on the reviews with me. I know Ruben joined for Godzilla King of the Monsters review, but I don't know what else we did.
I know I have definitely a spotty coverage here, which, if anyone's listened to last week Ghostbusters review and then this one, they might be like, who's this Dylan guy who doesn't do his homework? Normally I do. I just wanted to see these two movies without having done all the research going in. But not seeing that original King Kong, that 2014 that you said for the year on that one?
That was
just
Godzilla.
Godzilla. Just called Godzilla though, right?
2017 was Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I saw Kong Skull Island because I think that was like a full man review. I feel like we had 4 or 5 or 6 people on that review back in the day. Prime year in the GeekVerse history. 2017 is a classic. And then, yeah, I didn't join you for the review on that Godzilla King of Monsters, but that was your Golden Geeks pick of that year. So I did watch that movie at home. Not going to be the same experience as the big screen. And then I have not. Maybe the most important one to miss is that I have not seen Godzilla versus Kong. That's once again just how I hadn't seen Afterlife before Frozen Empire. Probably a big one to miss, but yeah. So I definitely have a spotty history here, but I guess I've seen one of the Godzillas, one of the King Kong, so I have a little bit of backstory. But I think also relevant, that King Kong, Peter Jackson's one from, what was it, 2006 or 7, something like that. That I love that movie so much, and I have not watched it in a very long time. But as a kid, that was that would probably have been my top 10, top 5 favorite movies, and I should revisit it at some point. So I definitely have a lot of love for that character. And then otherwise, Godzilla, I've actually not seen a ton of before, honestly. Like I think maybe that King of Monsters might be the only Godzilla movie I've ever seen. So
You never saw like
definitely
that 1990s one where it like lays all the eggs, takes over New York?
no,
Oh wow,
no.
okay.
I mean, I've seen like Cloverfield. That's about it. But
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
but you've seen all of these things, right? I guess with Monarch you haven't started yet.
I did actually.
Oh, you have. Okay.
I watched through Monarch. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I forgot about that. Okay, so you're all up to date then.
I'm all up to date. Yeah. And this whole arc that we've gotten of this cinematic monster universe, I am probably partial to the earlier stories than I am to where we're at now. I know where
Okay.
I would rank all of my movies, and I'll probably do a letterbox ranking now that after we review this and we break
Nice.
it down. But yeah, that first Godzilla movie and King of the Monsters are just so high on the pedestal for me. I really like them, and I feel like the scale of Godzilla and the other Titans in those movies are really, really represented well, and they just feel massive. But when you look at them here, in this movie, for example, and just even Godzilla versus Kong and whatnot, they're spending so much time just focusing and viewing these Titans that you just kind of lose that scale factor a little
I
bit.
agree with that big time, actually. Yeah, pun
I
intended
feel like
there.
that yeah, I feel like it is kind of a takeaway a little bit, unfortunately. So that's probably one of my major cons that I have with these later iterations. But it's funny with this movie, particularly at as the credits immediately when the credits rolled, probably like 90% of the audience just started to applause, and I was actually stunned.
Whoa!
I was
Wow.
looking,
Okay.
I was stunned. I was gonna whip my phone out and start recording it briefly because this is weird, but I can't put my finger on how many
Fucking
movies I've
Dan
had an
Stevens
applaud.
back there clapping. Rebecca Hall in the back row
Yeah,
there.
they're all
That'd be
there.
funny.
Yeah. So overall, I love the universe, and this is a movie that I was not anticipating we were gonna get. King of the Monsters was not overly reviewed well by critics, but the fan base really liked it, and I loved it as one of the fans as well. But they had already started working on Godzilla versus Kong at that point. And I think this is something Travis has said too. Don't quote me on this, but if they weren't already starting on that movie, then after King of the Monsters, this franchise would have basically been dead in the water. But they already started on Godzilla versus Kong, so they just kept rolling with it, obviously. But then COVID happened, and the movie did not go in theaters. It just went out to streaming, right? HBO Max and whatnot. But it
Right.
did so well on streaming. Of course, there was
Huh.
nothing else really going on, nothing else to watch at the time. So Godzilla versus Kong really popped off, and lo and behold, and rumors started circulating about Mini Kong and all this kind of stuff. And here we are. We have our follow-up movie. So, yeah.
So I mean, because it seems you said earlier that you kind of are more partial to the earlier stuff, um, compared to the newer stuff. But obviously, you still like that Godzilla versus Kong. Getting all these titles right is a lot of work on my end. Yeah, but what did you think of this one? Were you into this?
So
Were you one of the people applauding at the end there with Dan Stevens?
I didn't applaud. I was in shock. But the movie was it. I feel like it's a step down from where we were at with Godzilla versus Kong. But there was a lot of stuff I really enjoyed. I'm always down for the monster fights and everything. I thought it was great, but the scenes were just more choppy. Certain things are quick cut and jump, jump, jump. And there's certain scenes too where you can feel like it's almost like an afterthought, where you see a character standing in one place and he's engaging in dialogue, and then it cuts to the next scene and he's standing all of a sudden next to a character, and you can tell, okay, they didn't splice a lot of this stuff together very well.
Right.
But that being said, I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed it. I was laughing. Some of the jokes, the humor was really working for me. But there were some things that I just thought was questionable. I didn't understand what they were doing, these certain specific things. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. But I know where I would put it.
Ooh, okay. Well, we'll save that for the end, I suppose. You know, gotta leave something there for the fans. Yeah, for me, I thought the movie was okay. I didn't think it was bad by any means, but I also don't think it was great or good or really excelled in any particular way. I think the biggest thing that really stood out to me is that, like, even compared to, I mean, Kong Skull Island is like such a mess of a movie, but even King of the Monsters, which wasn't a movie that I loved, I feel like it did have a style to it, like a distinct style. This, I don't feel like it really had a style. Like there's so much of the, and I can't even remember what was in the trailer, so I don't want to spoil stuff. But there's a certain area, I guess. Well, your name is Center of the Earth. Well, I'll just call it the Center of the Earth. I feel like all of that just looked like AI generated imagery, and that was like their concept art, and then like the CGI artist just like went ham on it. Like I don't know, there's definitely a lack of style to me in terms of like the dialogue, in terms of the visuals of it, and like the music and sound. Like I just don't think there's really a great feel to this movie, which I guess I wasn't really put into it. And also the CGI, it's not amazing. It's not like immersive. And of course it's like larger than life things, very unbelievable things. So it maybe wouldn't be naturally immersive in that way. But I just found myself not getting too connected to it. And, even like our three main actors, that Rebecca Hall, Dan Stevens, I mentioned, and then Brian Tyree Henry, who's a guy that's like really on the come up for me here because of Bullet Train. And then, as I mentioned on our newscast this week, I just started Atlanta this week, and he's in that show too. And like, he's really great. I think he's really fun in this movie too. But like, none of these characters are really given enough juice to see them in like a Golden Geeks at the end of the year. Like even though the acting is good there. And then other things too. Like I just felt like at some points, man, like the CGI and like the weird, like the camera was always like spinning. The sounds were so just like, whoa, whoa. I just feel like for hours. That's Godzilla or Kong rather. Like every sound he makes, it's like the same like 2 or 3 stock sounds like over and over again. The music is just like that, and my brain was just like I could feel it turning to mush, especially in this last like 20 minutes when it's just like big fucking Kongs and huge creatures fighting each other. I was just getting a little lost in the sauce there. So I wish I just had like 1 or 2 things that I could latch onto and say like, oh, I love that part and I'm passionate about that part. And I think people should see the movie for this one thing, but there really isn't any of that. It's just a bunch of meh stuff and like a couple, maybe slightly better moments. So overall, I'm not in love with it. I'll never watch it again. And I don't really know how to recommend this to. Like if you're into all these movies, even at their worst, like a Kong Skull Island, or I guess sounds like maybe there's kind of controversial take on Godzilla versus Kong. If you're into that stuff, I mean, you probably don't need my description here. You're probably going to go see it anyway. But yeah, it's maybe not my cup of tea necessarily, even though, once again, King Kong 2006, whatever year that movie was, I love that. So I know there's room in my heart somewhere for these kind of movies, and I guess I'm still looking for it. I probably should have watched Godzilla -1 last year. That probably would have been one that I would have loved too. So
that's right.
I'll definitely do it at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the cast that was in this film is returning from Godzilla versus Kong.
And Rebecca Hall, was she in King of the Monsters?
Oh, no.
For some reason, she looked kind of familiar to
me.
me. Maybe I'm just like remembering trailers for all these movies. I remember Ken Watanabe was in there.
What is that actress's name? She's in The Conjuring. Oh,
Rebecca Hall, is that who you're thinking of?
No.
You're thinking of someone else.
I'm thinking of someone else. Why is she not listed here, for crying out loud? Where the heck is she? Okay.
It looks like, from what I'm seeing, she doesn't look like she was in...
Vera Farmiga.
I don't know who that is.
You've seen The Conjuring, right?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
She plays the main Lorraine Warren lady. She's a really good actress. She's been in a few things, but yeah, she's yeah. Rebecca Hall, to my knowledge, is definitely not in King of Monsters.
Gotcha. I don't know why she looked familiar. Maybe she just looks like a familiar kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know if I have any other non-spoilery thoughts here.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the sounds. They love the animal sounds and the sound effects and all that. Oh my goodness!
It's funny because there was maybe that's spoiler talk. I'll save that thought because there was one moment that worked for me, but I'll save that.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's get to our first ad break and then break into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and come back. We'll see you in a second. And we're back. So what do you want to start on this maybe spoiler?
Well, I'll start. Yeah, I'll share this moment. It is actually pretty early on in the movie, but the one part I actually really liked from the score, it was like almost more of a techno or like sort of Daft Punky sort of thing. It's when they're all gearing up to go to the Hollow Earth, and you have that very goofy moment where the three like main characters, or maybe there's four of them there. I think it's just the three of them at that point, and they're like walking through the hallway, kind of like in slow mo, and there's like kind of this just one sort of Daft Punky sort of techno track that's playing, and even like the lighting of that, like I thought that was. To me, that was like the one moment in the movie where it actually had like a distinct style to it, and I kind of was vibing with that. But then it didn't really go in that direction. There were a couple moments where they had like a licensed song, and it was meant to be like a big, pop culture kind of action movie moment. But then I feel like those moments were very few and far between. Like Dan Stevens has one of those too when he brings in like the pterodactyls, and I forget what song is playing, but they like play in a very like Guardians of the Galaxy sort of way, just play some very popular song as he comes in here to disrupt this moment. But it was weird that those moments were really like minimally interlaced in there, I guess, for the heroes. Obviously the big boys, they usually just get like their pretty classic, like, bois sort of sounds, right, for their soundtrack stuff. Because you got to get that scale, you got to make them feel big with the soundtrack as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I thought it was kind of nice to have those original, not scores, but I can't remember the name of the songs, but there's a few of them that just dropped in.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I can't recall any other original score pieces aside from like the whoop whoop whoop, like the sound effects.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember I remember the scene you're talking about where they're the slow mo and all three of them walking down the hall, but I don't remember the score that was going to that, unfortunately. So I might have to just do a rewatch and pick up on that.
I got a random question for you here. Man, Kong, that guy's using a lot of traps in this movie. Like a lot.
Wonderful.
Is that like an established thing for this Kong? He's a trickster. He likes he tries to one up his competition rather than just besting them in strength or size. He tries to outsmart them. Is that a character trait, would you say?
This is the first I've seen of that, and it's pretty cool. I really, really like it.
It just felt like some of it felt weird where you have this scene at the end, maybe in the middle-ish of the movie when he goes into like that lava domain, and you have like the guy with the whip thing, like the skeleton
Scar
whip.
King,
yeah, and he like pieces out of that domain. He just barely makes it out of their thing, which like the little monkey led him there. Like he's never been there before, but then like right outside of that cavern, he has traps set up. I'm like, how did you know that you would be here? Like, how did this work out? Or is this place like much smaller than I was giving it credit for? But it seemed like they'd been on quite a fellowship type of journey to get to that domain. So I was surprised that he had a trap there, because at the opening of the movie, that one made a bit more sense, where he was like maybe intentionally baiting all these like saber-tooth looking sort of creatures into his little. And then once again, the trap was very much the same. It was like a little cave, I don't know, a little narrow cave passage, and that's where he does his traps. So it just stood out to me as like, man, I thought they'd want King Kong to just be like punching people. So I was surprised that he was using traps.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen him use traps before in the other films, and the fact that he usually does get smacked around pretty hard, it was neat to see him try something different and use traps to this degree. The whole geolocation of the Hollow Earth, I've lost.
Was the Hollow Earth in Godzilla versus Kong?
Yes.
Okay, it was. So it was established there. Was it a big part of it, or was that more like an ending thing, like Godzilla retreats in there or something, or King Kong does?
I mean, it's it's been a while since I've seen it. I'd say it's like a 30% of the movie.
Okay.
Maybe 40, but yeah, like it's the focal point. It's where they realize like, okay, like Kong, we have an access point. We can get Kong here. This is before they discovered all the portals. The portals are something you learn about in the Monarch TV show that they start accessing.
Right. Weirdly, like after watching this, the thing that I'm most interested in is Monarch, because I really like the idea of them setting up some of these bases in different areas. And they have that one in the Hollow Earth, like Monarch set up one, whatever they called it, some name like that. And that seems cool, like that science part. And I think I'd probably get more invested in that, because there'd be more chance for character work rather than it just being about big dudes. So yeah, weirdly, that's the one I'm most curious to check out of all of these.
I'd recommend it. Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell both are great because you have the
Oh, they're in
dynamic
it?
where
That's fun.
Wyatt Russell's playing a younger version of Kurt Russell. They both play
That's
the
a
same
cool idea.
character. Really, the character stuff is great, and you get that science level, the different bases and stuff like that. It's really a good show.
Cool.
But yeah, the idea of figuring out where things are in the Hollow Earth, just to kind of allude back to what you were saying, they're like this trap being outside of Scar King's lair. I couldn't tell where things were in proximity to other things. Everything just seemed close, and maybe that's just because it's Hollow Earth. The ceiling is the floor, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But then we also had Inner Earth, which is like holy shit, where we have another Earth inside the Hollow Earth, which is crazy. And I guess that's where all the apes were, the Scar King and his crew, right?
Oh, is that what they call that area?
That's what they called it,
Okay,
because they kept dropping like the title card thing at the top. Like
there were
Hollow
so many
Earth.
of those. Yeah.
There is a lot of locations. Oh my god.
Now, I gotta ask because I swear on Cryptic Clues you've done like a Hollow Earth episode, right?
Yes.
Or like you've done a Flat Earth one, or both.
We've
maybe?
we've done both. Yeah.
Okay. How does this track for the Hollow Earth theory?
Well, Godzilla versus Kong does it well, where they, I think they go to the Antarctic. Maybe it was the Arctic. It was either north or south. I can't remember which end they go to in Godzilla versus Kong. But the tip of the world, basically, if you were to go up there, you'd basically find a big hole that you could access, and apparently it's encrypted clues fashion. It's basically United Nations has cornered it off. No one can get in.
Gotcha.
And in the case of Godzilla versus Kong, they basically had a monarch station there, and they basically tried to get Kong in there and send him on his way because they realized, okay, as long as Kong is on the surface, Godzilla is the alpha. Godzilla is going to go after Kong, and he'll never be safe. So the idea was, okay, we got to get Kong somewhere else. And I don't think they really knew about the Hollow Earth, but they thought, okay, we're going to send him down there because it's this whole thing where Kong's trying to find his kin, find more of his own kind.
Right.
And so he goes and he kind of figures out to go to Hollow Earth, and they kind of go in behind. But the thing with the portals is only Titans can activate the portals. There's some kind of like signature and their radiation or something about themselves that's why the portals open up and turn blue when a Titan approaches them.
Okay.
That's why humans kind of would piggyback and kind of go in behind.
Yeah.
But I think that they can activate it on their own. I'm not sure how the technology works.
And what is there a relation between Skull Island, like specifically that location, and the hall? Like, is there an opening there that we know of, or is that relevant?
There
to
is
the
an
plot?
opening. Yeah,
Okay.
there is a portal opening there that goes to Skull Island from Hollow Earth, which
Okay,
explains how Kong got there.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that makes sense why I guess like the tribes too. Like you have the girl here, I can't remember her name, but like not the daughter of Rebecca Hall, but do you remember the name of this character?
I don't remember. No.
Anyway,
Yeah, she was in Godzilla versus Kong, but yeah, that tracks. I understand what you're
yeah,
saying.
it seems like that would be like a deviation from the tribe underneath, obviously, and then they had the legend of the chosen one who would come back and summon Mothra and all that, which honestly that stuff got a little bit lost in the sauce for me, where like the people they're sending out this beacon, and I like some of the ideas here. Like I really like the idea that they can like control the gravity of the Hollow Earth, and they use that to like build these massive pyramids because they can just like lift up a huge, multi-ton brick with like 2 or 3 people. Like that's a really fun idea by like the way they maneuver stuff around. But yeah, some of it just like how they had this beacon and that was supposed to bring them in, but then like the only way they could possibly get in is by like touching that one specific spot on the rock that obviously that one moth like landed on. And like I guess maybe they sent that moth, or maybe it was just destiny, I'm not sure. But it's like I feel like they would try a little bit harder to make it easier to like find the saviors or like make this step a bit easier for them, but it seemed like a bit too convoluted for me. And also like even just the decision of where they decide to land their ship, and then they're like, oh, we're just gonna go on foot from here, and then like all this dangerous stuff with like 3 people who are completely unarmed. Like it just, a lot of it seemed like very lucky that it just worked out. And I guess I could have easily just seen it being written a bit differently, where like the people from down below who were sending that beacon just were somehow more helpful to them finding it. Obviously, it didn't matter in the end, but maybe I'm just being nitpicky. But that whole series of steps just seemed a bit bit unnecessary to me, perhaps, or
Hmm.
a bit just kind of too lucky.
No, I would agree. I think that it felt very rushed, which is a shame. I mean, they get down there and they're walking around when they got killer trees everywhere and all these like things that are just not natural to a human like human environment. So they're just cruising around. And yeah, they get to this colony. I mean, they're lucky they wouldn't have been killed right away. Like these tribal people could have just slit their throats or taken them down. The one guard who I feel like they wrote him off really quickly because he was kind of listening and he was on board and he was very cautious. But then, right when he got out into the woods, he's like fighting, like, no, we're going to go this way. Like, if someone tells me that something could be up ahead, I'm going to listen. Like, oh, you
Mm-hmm.
smell that decaying body? He's like, yeah, just a draft that came from south or something. Like, I was like, what are you talking about, man? I mean, you're not a professional really in this situation, but
Yeah, these movies
uh,
always have that guy. That's
they
a
do.
classic trope, and that's where I also felt too. Like, yeah, a lot of like very cliche sort of dialogue
Hmm.
here. So I think that's why they did at least a good job with the three main crew there. I mean, how do you feel about like this podcast live streamer sort of trope? I feel like we're seeing this a lot now in movies where there's like some guy who's always live streaming or. And like, why was he always so fucking zoomed in on his camera? Like, bothered me
Oh, I
so
know.
much. Like, it was so unclear. But sorry, that's a tangent. But I do want to know, like, what are you thinking of this? Because I feel like even
uh,
Ghostbusters kind of had this last week, so it's just
Yeah, and
everywhere
the
now.
Frozen Empire again, right? That's
Yeah.
just that's the theme right now. Um, I enjoyed it. I get a kick out of him and his character and his podcasting. He's from Godzilla versus Kong, so I like
Gotcha.
I liked how he has this kind of approach, but yeah,
Hmm.
I think that there was a good message in that too, where he was being told like, just look at this, all these isolated people and civilizations and cultures that you film that, put it on the internet, and then look what's gonna happen. It's not gonna
Hmm.
last. But he just kind of disregarded it. But
Yeah. No,
um,
I thought he was fun though, and I think Dan Stevens, like they what did they call him? What was the name for him again?
Trapper,
Yeah, Trapper, like yeah, just doing this dental work on Kong and like man, I swear, if you had frostbite and your arm is fucked up and you've nerve damage, I don't think giving you a power fist is gonna fix you. But according like, I guess there's a lot more unrealistic things in this movie than that, so I should just let it slide. But I really liked his character. I thought it was like a fun idea that he's just like this master of fixing up Kong. He's just like his guy that you'd go to in between missions to like level up your character and get the new upgrades. And then Rebecca Hall, like I don't know, she doesn't have a lot to do necessarily, but just like that being that kind of emotional bond between her and the kid, and she can do the acting where the kid doesn't really act a whole lot. The kid just kind of hanging out, but she can get really emotional and pull on the
hmm
heartstrings a little bit. So I think those three did a really good job of kind of bringing some heart and soul to the movie, which could otherwise just be like big CGI beasts fighting each other.
hmm yeah, I think Rebecca was. Yeah, she was great. I liked her in Godzilla versus Kong, and I liked her in here. She really sold those emotional moments for sure. Uh, Trapper, he was cool. I liked him just standing on top of Kong's mouth, just yanking the tooth out, and
Mm-hmm.
just being such a badass. And he was just loving it when they got him into Hollow Earth. He's just like. Before like the tribe people came up, he whips his knife out. He's like, "Yeah, I knew someone was around here." Like he's just on a whole next level. It was really funny. Um, Oh, what was the other thing? Yeah. So with the arm, the power arm,
Mm-hmm.
is this the definition of like plot armor? Because Kong is like down and out. He's not doing good. Frostbite, tissues, nerve damage,
Yeah.
everything. And then it just so happens Rebecca's character is like, yeah, well, we did this prototype weapon before it was shut down. We had it dropped off here. Like it's like okay, and it has the specific juice to help with the frostbite and
Yeah.
to like talk
I know.
about.
Yeah, that part was the thing I didn't understand. Was that a line they had that it would somehow like
Yeah.
fix the
Trapper is
frostbite?
like, oh yeah, this should help the frostbite. And you see like three giant jelly vats like injecting
Okay,
into his
yeah.
arm.
Yeah, that was pretty goofy, but I don't I really like that yellow ship they had, like the one that Trapper used in the first place to pull the tooth out and then like had the arm kind of hanging out from it.
Hmm
It was like a fun little device. But yeah, you're right. That was definitely plot armor or plot fist in this case. I mean, it made for like some badass moments, but even just the fact that they're standing there like, oh, who knows what he's gonna do? Is he gonna be happy or is he gonna just bite it off? And then he just like pops off. Like I don't know. I don't think picture that being like my immediate reaction. Maybe it would be if I got cured of frostbite instantly. Maybe I would just pop off. But it did seem a bit strange. But Kong doesn't have much of a personality in this compared to my favorite Peter Jackson movie, for example.
Yeah, I mean the Peter Jackson one. There's a lot more emotion in that King Kong for sure.
Yeah,
And
it's a
this
different.
one-
It's achieving different goals. It's not.
It
it's,
is.
You don't want to make too much of a 1-to-1, but it's definitely a
No,
favorite
and
one.
this Kong has an aggressive, compassionate kind of vibe. Maybe I'm not sure what the proper word would be for that, but just the way he's with little Kong, mini Kong, son of Kong, whatever you want to call him. Like I liked how he was with him, and some of those scenes, like a lot of the scenes with King Kong. I mean, it's the whoop 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 sound effects and whatnot, but there's no dialogue, and they're not signing to each other, and you just have to read the scene and the situation. And I think they did a good job at displaying those different situations. Like when Mini Kong, you can tell he's plotting something when he lures King Kong into the water, and he's like drinking but like looking around, and then
Right.
the sea serpent creeps in. I loved all that kind of stuff. It was really funny. And then King Kong shares some of his food with
Yeah,
Mini Kong.
I loved how hesitant Mini Kong was in that moment too, where he didn't want to take it, and then Kong just throws it on the ground and gets it all dusty, which is like a little bit rude, but at the same time, Mini Kong was being rude. But yeah, did you like Mini Kong as a new character here?
I did actually, and I like that it was different from what I was expecting in the trailers. In the trailers, you see like Mini Kong walk out of the mist or the fog, the smoke, and seeming very scared and maybe, dare I say, I don't want to say weak, but vulnerable. And then in the movie, no, he's just biting King Kong's hand right away. King Kong is just whipping around like a fucking mallet, smacking the other.
That was
apes.
hilarious. Yeah, when
Oh
he just
my
chucked
God.
him and used him like Hulk used Loki as a weapon in Avengers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe that. That was absolutely bonkers. But yeah, I thought as the character developed, I really liked the character. I thought there was a lot to this little Kong that I was able to enjoy. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that was the Mini Kong's parent that got killed and kicked into the lava, if I had to guess.
Okay.
Or maybe just like it was a caretaker of some kind. But the way that
Right.
parent or ape kind of just was like, no, don't hurt my little one. That's what kind of sold me. That's why I think he's...
Yeah, I guess I took it more as like Mini Kong was more just sympathetic to any of them that weren't part of like that inner circle of what was his name? Scarface? What was his
Scar King.
Scar King, yeah. Yeah, definitely not Scarface. Yeah, I took it more that way. Where like you can tell which ones are the inner circle, like their hair's all falling out, they're looking raggedy. And they're just much more rude and mean and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like any of the other ones, you instantly feel sympathy for them because they're just being like treated like slaves. They're being kind of just smacked around and whatnot by those overseers, I suppose. So I don't know. I don't have a guess as to what the relation was. I'd say it's more just like a random Kong rather than a parent, but I could be wrong.
That's fair. It's nice to see King Kong kind of immediately implement this leadership role too, where he's like, "Oh, why are you fighting other Kongs? There's fucking Kong heads on spikes, like sticking on the ground. Like, jeez, this is brutal."
Yeah, I don't imagine that being a very nice place to live. Like, there you have beautiful, lush forests with sunlight, pretty damn close, but instead they live like just hanging out in this den.
It's all those
of
traps
lava.
that are outside. They don't dare go out there.
I guess so. I mean, yeah, it probably is more dangerous out there to some extent, but also, I don't know. You trip once and you just fall into a vat of lava. Like it just seems pretty risky in there too. Can I share my very weird take about Scar King in this?
Do it.
He had a very particular swagger to him in the way he would slouch, the way he'd walk around. You know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of Austin Butler in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. and maybe even a bit of Austin Butler in Dune. Like just something about Austin Butler's lanky sort of body and the way he kind of like stands or slouches a little bit, and he's kind of got his way about him. He's got his like snarky little smile. I just couldn't get out of my head. I was like, this is such a weird choice for Scar King's personality. That was my take, at least. I did like his. It looked like a bandolier of bones, but then he could just like turn it into a whip, and then it also had like the mind control thing for Shmi or whatever that dude's name was. Definitely wasn't Shmi. But yeah, I don't know. Scar King, not the most successful villain to me, just because of his weird demeanor. That didn't work so much for me.
Yeah, the rope sword that he was using, very very neat to kind of see that in action. I didn't realize that the tip of it would actually be a way of controlling the Shimu is the Titan's name, which this
Shimu,
Titan was introduced in Call of Duty Warzone of all places. Very very peculiar.
That's really weird. Wait, like there's not like an origin for the character?
No, the origin
my
is
God.
in that Call of Duty Caldera map,
Yeah.
where King Kong Godzilla fought. If there's cave paintings
That's
of Godzilla
wild.
fighting Shimu, and
Because isn't that like
where it
not
originated.
available anymore, that mode?
Not available anymore. That's where it originated.
So the origin for that character is lost to the annals of time now.
As far as I know, yeah, that's
Really weird.
it. It's something else. Oh
My other weird take. Sorry, and then you can talk about Scarface.
I'll go
But
ahead.
Scar King, Shimu.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the pastiness of the scales, the shape, and the eyes specifically. He once again, just like how Scar King looked like Austin Butler, this guy looked like Jim Gaffigan to me. I could not unsee it. Once I started thinking about Jim Gaffigan, he's got this shapely face. He's got the
Holy
eyes.
shit, you're right.
Why does he look so much like Jim Gaffigan?
Oh my god, that's uncanny. I'm popping up like a photo here. Like he's in that photo. That's Shimu right there.
It's kind of like Shimu.
That's crazy. Oh my god. I'm so glad you said that. I like that you have identified these weird
Because I'm like, I know these guys are not mocapping these characters,
No.
but like, but it seems like they base it off them to some extent. But yeah, what did you think of these two? Because I guess you've known Shimu before. But I'm guessing Scar King is a new character for this film.
As far as I know, Scar King is the first other ape-like creature we've seen live action, especially like Simian, I guess, facing off against King Kong for sure. He was definitely terrifying, but I'd be lying if I said I was not disappointed when they announced Scar King and they announced Shimu. I feel like we've really tapped out on all the terrestrial threats on Earth. And a big thing for me in the Godzilla expanded kind of universe with other kaiju is getting to see these other alien titans. And King Ghidorah is definitely one of those alien titans that we got to explore, which was very cool. But I want to see other ones like Destroya. Well, I guess Destroya is more Earth bound, but there's like Space Godzilla, there's Gigan, there's all of these other
Is Jet Jaguar an
titans.
alien or is he a Earthling?
He's an Earthling.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like having the aliens come into play too with their like titans as well. There's so much to explore with that. But anyways, I digress. Scar King, he was scary. He was cool. They made him very human-like, and I think that's something that I'm not, again, hugely fond of, is these titans acting more human-like. I don't mind Kong having that to a slight degree with the girl because he's able to sign with her and communicate with her, and they have a very close relationship. But with all of these titans just being able to be very human-like, it pulls me out. And again, that's why I'm drawn to those first films, because the first one, you have Godzilla. He's a monster. He's a titan, and he's just doing what nature kind of calls him to do. Just keep the balance, you could say. And if cities get in the way, then cities are getting in the way. But in here, it's just, yeah, it's just they're too human-like, and yeah, they kind of just warp things around a little bit more with that. And I mean, Shimu, he was cool. I got actually.
Yeah,
I think she was a
that
she
seems like one
actually.
you'd be into for sure.
Yeah, very very cool looking Titan, and the fact that there is a little bit of this lineage, like backstory that Shimu is like a prisoner to the Scar King, and once Shimu breaks free, then Shimu is like, you know what, fuck this, and just frosts Scar King out the
Yeah,
wazoo. So that
yeah,
was kind of cool.
yeah. No, I like what you said there with the characterization of it, because yeah, once again, even for like Kong and having more interaction with humans, like over time, he's gonna naturally take on some of those things too, because he's a smart enough creature and he has those mirror neurons and whatnot, right? So he'll start to
Hmm.
like get some of that. But you're right, it is kind of weird for like that scene. That the one scene that really bothered me is when Kong first shows up there. Scar King comes out of his throne room. He comes down and he like points at his tooth, and then he turns back to his lackeys and he starts chuckling. And then like all these monkeys just start like laughing, and it just felt like a very much like a bully scene from like any high school movie you've ever seen in your life. And it just felt really weird. It like really took me out of it. It didn't feel like, I don't know. To me, it seemed like maybe too familiar than what these
Yeah.
characters should be doing. So yeah, that felt like very much like trying to put some like very human personality on them, but
Hmm.
it just came across as like really cheesy to me. And so I think Scar King didn't start in a great place for me. I was like almost immediately like, I'm not not a big fan of this guy, and his kind of goofy goofy ways. But also, man, Scar King riding on Shimu at any moment, you take one little bump, one little stumble, and those spikes are going up
Oh
in.
yeah.
I was like, that is a huge risk he's taking, and he's like jumping on this thing. He's riding it hard. So
Hmm.
I was shocked by that choice. That doesn't seem very smart, but I guess he's been shown to not be super smart. So maybe that's fair enough.
Hmm. And again, that's such a cool thing to see, and even the scale of King Kong jumping and riding on the side of Godzilla while they were charging
I thought
too.
that
Like
was a
there's
cool moment. I like that.
is very cool. But again, the scale factor. It would have been so cool to actually see that more from our level of perspective and not just our
Yeah,
level just panned out to take in the fact that okay, they're really big. It just didn't feel like that.
that's
There's
a
that
great point.
scale.
Like even at the end of this movie, I have no idea how big Mini Kong is. I could not tell you. I don't know if he's 10
Yeah.
feet tall. It could be 50 feet tall. I truly have no clue. And I think that just goes to show, like, this movie had very much of like that Ant-Man Quantumania element to it, where like so much of it is just completely CGI backgrounds with huge CGI characters that you just get lost in it, right? And I think for a movie like this, you like that's a really good point. Like the scale is a big part of the fantasy that we're invested in as the viewer, and why people care about Godzilla in the first place, and how those original movies back in the day tried to do it without special effects is funny to look back on. But yeah, I think they've kind of lost it a bit. And just when you have CGI backgrounds, when you have CGI buildings, and then all these CGI creatures that are supposed to be different scales, but then they kind of just seems like scene to scene they can kind of be different sizes depending on what the scene needs. You're right; it just gets a bit muddy.
Hmm. It really does. I'm gonna throw in one more muddy fact after this quick ad break, and we're back. So the whole surface battle that we get to, um,
In the
really
city at the end, like
in
the
the
final battle,
city,
yeah.
yeah, like I get it. That's more of that scale factor that just doesn't feel like it exists there. But just the some cool scenery, though I will admit, when Scar King like whips his rope sword around a building and then like throws that building towards King Kong. King Kong like punches it. Rest in peace, every soul that was working in that office because they're fucked, just absolutely annihilated. But yeah, overall, I think it was pretty cool.
Yeah, what was your favorite action sequence? Because you have like the anti gravity sequence, you have that, I don't know, I guess that sequence in Scar King's domain, and then that chase scene. You have that final battle. You have Kong versus Godzilla again in Egypt against the
Hmm.
pyramids. Do you have a favorite?
I would have to say I loved when Godzilla. I can't remember the name of this creature, Titanicus. The underwater battle. That's something we haven't really gotten to see in the other Godzilla films.
Against that snake
So
like thing, you mean?
against
Okay.
the snake-like thing underwater, when Godzilla is like swimming in and that snake thing was fighting Godzilla underwater, it was cool. It was brief,
Hmm.
but it was a really cool sequence. You'd have to be a dumbass to be in that submarine and be like, "Let's go in, let's get up close." Like, why are you going
Oh,
close to
with
this?
Tiamat, right? That one.
Yeah. Like, god dang, why are you getting close in here with this battle going on?
I
They're lucky
agree.
they made it out there, made it out alive. Jeez,
Yeah,
but
very
the
silly.
alteration to Godzilla 2, I'm not a big fan of his new look. I'm kind of a sucker for that
Hmm.
OG look,
What'd
but
they
his
change?
mutation, they made his
Did you like?
scales a lot more sticking out and more fin-like,
Oh,
and they
okay.
made like his neck more like aquatic and fin-like. So he's definitely gone
Oh,
through
is he like
uh,
adapting? I guess to his the environment a bit more,
w-
maybe.
w- maybe adapting, but I'd say like when he went in there and took over that radiation home, that den from that other lizard thing. I mean that changed his appearance. He don't
Right.
he's juiced.
Yeah. Yeah. So less so the like new colors and whatnot, but more like the extra
I
spines and
love the new colors, but yeah,
gills.
just the cosmetic skin that he purchased.
Hmm.
I'm not digging it. So.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a boring take, but I think Godzilla was my favorite of the kaiju, I guess, in this movie. He's just cool, and I thought I would be more of a King Kong guy because I once again have a lot of love for that older movie, and it's a character in general I tend to like more. But I just think there's something so cool about Godzilla here, and I thought there was some really cool shots. The one I really liked is when King Kong comes up to the surface and he's kind of like baiting Godzilla over to him by the
Oh yeah.
pyramids. I think that's that moment, and Godzilla like climbs up this like mountain, the Rock of Gibraltar, I think they called it something like
Hmm.
that. I don't know if I might be mixing up scenes here. Then just like him jumping off and diving in, I thought that was really cool to see. One thing I like too, another detail is the other sequence when they're in the water with King Kong and the Mini Kong and that Rayquaza looking thing. Like the when they were trudging through the water, I feel like they did a good job of capturing the scale with the water there. Where rather than it being like little splashes, it was like these huge like swashes of water that really feel like they had the weight of like them going 30 feet in the air just when with each step that King Kong was taking. So I thought they did a good job with that. So I guess just in general, like maybe the water they do a good job with
Hmm.
in terms of the CGI here. That was some of the better stuff. And I mean,
Hmm.
smashing into the pyramids is always gonna be fun.
Yeah, I kind of liked how they really focused on this three triangles kind of concept, and I really
Yeah,
liked
true.
how when you go into this center Earth, Hollow Earth temple where the tribe was residing, if I remember correctly, they had like three distinct pyramids. Well, they had the two that were upside down that they could like
Right.
combine to send signals out, but they had three. I'm pretty sure they had three pyramids, and those three
Yeah,
pyramids at the
because there was all
top
those
was like,
crystals too, and I know some of the two of the crystals were like in an X shape, and I don't know if that was supposed to be
mhm.
just like for the movie or like that was
Oh,
just like a little marketing thing.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I liked how these three crystal pyramids, and at the top, or just above it, above through the portal, you got the three pyramids of Giza.
I didn't even
It's
think about
just
that. That's a great notice. I love that.
the reflection from up above to down below. Yeah, I appreciated that. But yeah, the pyramids just getting absolutely fucked up was nuts. But yeah, you're right. When King Kong was like looking at the portal and then looking back at Godzilla, Godzilla was like charging at him, and King Kong's like going like this, like wait.
Yeah. Yeah,
That made me
that
laugh.
did not work, but I like that eventually just he's like, you know what, fuck it. I just got to show him what the hell I'm talking about down here and
Yeah.
then he'll believe me and then you do get that team up moment. So I thought that was actually well done of like we like obviously this is not Godzilla versus Kong 2. It's Godzilla times or X Kong. I still don't know what exactly that means in their definition, but it's going to happen at some point, but I still think they did a good job of like building up to that moment because it could have just been that where when he put those hands up, Godzilla could have just stopped, and I don't know how they would have communicated, but maybe do some sign language or something that Godzilla could read, and then you have friendship just like that. But I like that we kind of had to, I don't know, we had to build up to it a bit more. I thought that
You
was
had to
good.
build up, yeah. And that other scene too I really enjoyed was when King Kong like he punches, it just knocks out Godzilla, and then it pans to the next scene, and he's just fucking dragging Godzilla
Mm-hmm.
to this portal to throw him in. That made me laugh, and
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla's just murking all the pyramids, and it
Yeah.
reminded me of the way that King Kong ran out behind that first pyramid. You remember season 5 of Mr. Sinister running down the alley behind Cyclops?
Oh yeah.
It just reminded me of that for some reason. But yeah, then you get Mothra popping in here, and
Yeah,
that's
you
like
must
you
like
said
that.
I do, and you've seen King of the Monsters, so you would remember. Maybe you remember Mothra.
Like it was yesterday. I really
There you
don't.
go.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Like it's only been one movie since we lost Mothra, but I remember seeing on Godzilla forums, people are like, "Oh, Mothra's coming back," and people were predicting Mothra's going to come back. I don't know how, but
Yeah, what is?
yeah.
I guess I need some info here then, because it seems like from what I got here, Mothra's been like in a freaking hidden vault for thousands of years, waiting for the chosen one to come back and revive and awaken Mothra again. So what happened in between Mothra in that movie and then Mothra here?
So Mothra was basically like an egg, and if I remember correctly, which I probably don't, I believe like it's a consistent cycle. So there's a Mothra, and then Mothra lays an egg, and then
Oh, okay, so it's a
Mothra.
new birthing one.
It's
Okay,
a new one, yeah,
gotcha,
that keeps on going. So Mothra is technically always like an immortal,
gotcha,
I guess you
gotcha.
could say. But yeah, Mothra died in King of the Monsters because she like threw her essence and like dissipated onto Godzilla, so Godzilla could beat King Ghidorah. And then in here, yeah, there's no egg or anything like that. It just seems like she was just summoned. I mean, she's the queen of the monsters. Godzilla's the king of the monsters.
Mm,
They're not a couple, but they definitely have
that could be the next one.
that could be the next one. Yeah, they definitely have a very compatible relationship, as you can
Right.
see here. When Mothra appeared, Godzilla is like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked Godzilla using the Roman Colosseum as his little
Oh yeah,
his little
that was
cat
great.
little nook. How like cats, they always like twirl around a bunch of times in their little cozy little pouches there.
Hmm.
Um, this is a random question. You kind of you've answered this in passing, but like, how do you feel this movie as a sequel specifically? In terms of things you wanted based on the previous movies and Monarch and all this stuff, like I don't know, did it further those storylines or that lore in a way that you really think adds to this, I guess, series now?
It gives me a peace of mind and happiness to know that King Kong has found his kin, and he's with his own kind now. I really like that. I like that a lot, actually. But as far as it goes, story wise, and what it adds to the universe and the world building, uh, I'm not as excited as I wish I could be. I
Okay.
wanted to get the other things like the alien titans, and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff thrown into here. I think that would have been a lot more fun to divulge into, because I feel like everything that we've gotten in these movies has just consistently been threats on Earth, Earth bearing problems and whatnot, humans versus titans, yada yada yada. There was the other. What was that other Titan that was really, really cool to see?
Which sequence?
It was when Godzilla was dealing with, I think it was in Spain, that spider. What is
Oh yeah,
Scylla is his name. Yes.
Priscilla, Scylla,
Scylla,
Scylla.
Scylla. And that's an old school Titan. So that was
I
cool
like
to
that
see
one
that
too.
one
It
come
was cool.
back. Um, yeah. So those are some quality of life things where they're adding in those titans and whatnot. There's one quick scene with a podcaster. He's going through his notebook, and he's talking about the signal appearing at certain times when Godzilla fought King Ghidorah for the first time, and other events throughout history. But I really want to just pause and freeze frame that piece of paper he has, because he's
Mm,
got all those notes, and that's what I like. And usually in other Godzilla universe movies, you get those sequences where you want to look through all the notes and see like someone
right.
has like a book that's hanging on the desk, and there's little Easter eggs and whatnot in there. There's a lot of background stuff like these Titan locations that they are unveiling. I want to look more into that, because they do a good job at kind of adding to the world through those little tiny Easter eggs. So that's the kind of thing I appreciate.
Nice. I have to imagine there was a post-credit scene in this movie, but there was
No.
not. Okay, because I pieced out right when it ended. But
Yeah, no,
I'm surprised there
unfortunately,
wasn't actually.
Yeah,
Because
I don't remember if there was
didn't
before.
Skull Island have one?
Skull
Or
Island did, and that was them alluding to
it
the
was alluding to
matchup
Godzilla, wasn't it?
versus Kong. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
alluding
yeah.
to that.
Oh my God, how do I
Yeah,
remember that? That was so long ago. But
it's a deep pull.
yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do one here. I guess I don't know. Do we know? Is anything else confirmed coming in like terms of Monarch season 2 or or the next movie? Like, I guess we don't really know right now, do we?
I don't think there's a Monarch season 2, and I couldn't tell you if we're getting another one. I would not be surprised if this is the last one. I feel
Really?
like it's yeah. Again, I say that because I thought the Godzilla versus Kong was going to be the last one, but then we got this one. Uh, if this one does well in theaters and maybe overseas it does really really well, then I could see us getting another one. But I don't want more of this. I want them to really change up the story. I don't like. At this point there was that quick scene where you see like Mothra in the background, you see Shimu, Godzilla, King Kong, and Mini Kong. I'm like, man, we got our Avengers right now.
I
Like,
know,
what?
yeah.
What? Like the ultimate
This
team.
does
What
feel
are
like
they
an
gonna
endgame
face?
moment of bringing all these freaking kaiju together at the same
It
time.
really does. So, I mean, what can you do in a story to have these characters face off against? I mean, you've established the
Space,
universe.
honestly, as you said,
Well,
aliens.
that's
That's
just
like the
it.
perfect thing to set up because now you have this new threat that is foreign to all of them.
That's just
Plus
it, and
Jet
I hope
Jaguar.
we get
Please
it.
get him in the
Plus
mix
just
too
Jaguar,
somehow.
yeah, got to get him in there for sure. So I hope that they go that route and they do that. But there's still room to explore. But I don't know how many more movies you can do the same old same old. And for me, this feels like Godzilla versus Kong, but lesser.
Mm,
So yeah.
hmm Um, I think my last note was I love a good combo attack, as anyone listening to X-Men Retro knows. Video game things, I've mentioned this before, but I love that moment when like Godzilla like whips, I think, Scar King like into Kong. He grabs Scar King, and then I'm forgetting the exact order of events here. And then Shimu freezes Scar King, and then I thought Kong was just gonna like squeeze and like crush the ice in his hand, but instead, no, he goes for like the full like jump high
Hmm.
in the sky, crash him down into the earth, and just shatter him into a million pieces. Um, it was sweet. I'm into it.
Hmm.
That's what I like to see.
Yeah, I feel I'm not a huge viewer of WWE, but I feel like they definitely copied some moves from
Yeah, definitely.
what you might see in the ring.
Absolutely.
I can't think if I have anything else in my notes. I feel like we pretty much touched upon everything.
Right on. Yeah, same for me.
Well, final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts. I don't know. This was a fun review with you because obviously it's just like our Halo reviews where you're the master, you know everything and I know like a little bit. And so it's nice to pick your brain on certain things, but I hope whatever comes next I mean, you had Godzilla -1 last year. So in terms of like really high quality stuff, it seems like you haven't had too long of a wait, but I hope whatever happens next in this universe is something that's a bit more to your liking, a bit more to your style. And yeah, this was a fun time. I'm glad I went and saw this movie. I should probably go back and watch Versus at this point. I think I want to after this. A weird order of events, and then Monarch. I don't know. We'll see. Where do you stream that one these days?
That was on Apple.
Okay, I don't have Apple these days. Maybe next time I subscribe to Apple, I'll check it out. But
Mm.
overall, yeah, it was a fine movie. A fun time at the theater, one of those popcorn flick sort of things. So yeah, I think that's my final thoughts.
Yeah. I yeah, I enjoyed seeing this movie on the big screen. I watched it in 3D. That was the earlier showing that I could access, so I thought, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I think that they hit some things great. I liked a lot of the humor. I liked the action, and I like getting to explore more of this world, even though they were kind of doing it in the way that not the right way, but still in a way that I can get behind that I can enjoy. There are other things that I want, and maybe we'll get that in a sequel. But the characters, the actor, or not the actors, the Titans and whatnot. Like I'm always happy to see Titans and fights and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes these movies so kooky and crazy these days. I hope that we do return to form like we did with Godzilla King of the Monsters and just kind of visit back that theme that we got in that first Godzilla movie. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not gonna rush to revisit this movie very quickly. I'm kind of like you. I do want to go watch Godzilla versus King
Mm-hmm.
Kong
Yeah,
again.
I don't see you
Uh,
making this your Golden Geeks pick for this year. I would
no,
imagine.
this isn't my Golden Gates pick.
I'm excited to see that ranking though. When that's up on Letterbox, I'll go check that out.
Yeah, I mean it'll be. I have to think where I'm gonna put this compared to a couple of the other films. Well, actually, maybe just one. Yeah, one other one. But yeah, I'll figure out that ranking. I'm gonna give this a probably a 6.5 out of 10.
Whoa.
I'd
Okay.
say, yeah.
That's lower than I thought, but
Like
wow.
I wasn't applauding the film at the end like other people were. So clearly
Yeah.
people are really hyped on this movie, and it
Yeah.
has its fan base. But that's the nice thing about this franchise is there's so many movies now, and there's something for everyone. But
Hmm.
yeah,
What is a 6.5? Sorry, 6.5 was the final. What does that translate
Mhm.
to on Letterbox for you? Is that a 2.5?
That
Is that a
translates
3?
to a 3 out of 5 for me.
3. Okay, gotcha. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm.
That
That's
sounds
what
better than 6.5 for some reason. Isn't numbers are weird, aren't they?
numbers are weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they are.
Cool.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this episode of the GeekVerse podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back probably with our X-Men review next week, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So until then, we'll see you in the search bar.
Bye
Have a good
bye.
one.